When the world does not notice, God is watching more closely than ever. In those silent spaces, He is shaping character, strengthening faith, and preparing the soul for a purpose greater than recognition. Every hidden effort becomes a seed in God's hands, destined to bloom in its appointed time. The unseen worker may wonder if their labor matters, but in the eternal perspective, nothing done in faith is ever wasted. God's way is different from man's way. Humanity celebrates performance, but God celebrates perseverance. People look at outward results, but God examines inward resolve. He is drawn to the heart that continues to serve faithfully even when no praise is given. Such a heart mirrors the character of Christ, who labored in love, healed in silence, and prayed in solitude. Even the Son of God spent much of his life away from the public eye, growing in wisdom and favor before the time came for his work to be revealed. His hidden years were not forgotten, they were preparation. Likewise, every unseen act of obedience becomes a foundation for what God will one day reveal through you. When you understand that God sees the heart that labors unseen, you begin to find freedom from comparison. You no longer need to measure your worth against others or chase approval to feel valuable. The one who labors for God alone is content in knowing that the reward is secure. That peace brings strength to endure when others overlook or misunderstand your purpose. And then God's recognition is quiet but eternal. He will never forget silence is not emptiness. It is the sacred space where God speaks. In the stillness of life, when the noise of the world fades away, there is a divine presence that fills the heart of the one who listens. Many people fear silence because it feels like absence. They rush to fill every quiet moment with sound, distraction, or movement, believing that constant activity is a sign of life. Yet the truth is that in silence we encounter the deepest kind of presence. Silence is not the absence of something. It is the presence of someone. It is the holy ground where the voice of God can be heard, where the restless heart finds rest, and where the weary soul regains strength. The world celebrates noise because it feels productive. It feels productive. People measure their worth by how busy they appear, how many words they speak, or how much attention they can attract. But the voice of God rarely comes through chaos. It comes through quiet surrender. In the silence of prayer, in the still moments before dawn, in the pauses between words, there God whispers. His voice does not shout to compete with the noise of the world. It waits for a listening heart. When life grows still, the soul becomes tuned to a higher frequency, and in that sacred space, divine wisdom flows freely. Silence becomes a sanctuary where heaven touches earth. To understand the power of silence is to understand the rhythm of faith. But just as music finds beauty not only in sound but in pauses, so does the spiritual life find depth not only in action but in reflection. Silence teaches us to wait, to trust, and to let God move in ways we cannot see. It refines the impatient heart and anchors the wandering mind. In moments of silence, we begin to see ourselves as we truly are, without pretense, without disguise, without distraction. It is uncomfortable at first because
그렇게
silence
생각하지 마.
reveals the hidden corners of the heart, the fears, the doubts, and the desires we often bury under busyness. Yet when those things rise to the surface, God begins to heal them. Silence becomes a place of transformation where inner noise gives way to divine peace. Throughout history, those who walked closely with God were people of silence. They withdrew from crowds not because they were weary of people, but because they longed for God's nearness. Moses met God in the quiet of the mountain. Elijah heard him not in the earthquake or fire, but in the gentle whisper. Joseph dreamed of leadership, yet he endured betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment before reaching the palace. Even David was anointed king as a young man, but spent years fleeing from Saul before wearing the crown. In each story, faith was the spark that began the journey, but perseverance was the fuel that kept it alive. They did not give up when life grew hard because their faith was not built on emotion. It was built on trust in God's character. Perseverance is faith stretched over time. It is belief that refuses to die. Faith without perseverance often leads to frustration because people expect immediate results. They pray and believe, but when the answer does not come quickly, they out complain or quit. Yet delay is not denial. God uses waiting seasons to strengthen the believer's heart and to align their spirit with His will. Perseverance refines faith like fire refines gold. It removes impurities and deepens dependence on God. When you persevere, you are declaring that your hope is not in outcomes, but in the one who holds them. Every moment of endurance becomes an act of worship, proving that your trust is real. It is easy to have faith when the path is smooth. It is divine to hold faith when the road is rough. Faith and perseverance together reveal depth of relationship between a believer and God. Perseverance is the language of love spoken in seasons of silence. It says, I trust you even when I do not understand you. It is what allows faith to mature from mere belief into unshakable conviction. Perseverance transforms waiting into worship, disappointment into discipline, and suffering into strength. When you keep walking forward despite setbacks, you demonstrate that your faith is rooted not in circumstances but in the eternal faithfulness of God. This partnership of faith and perseverance creates a character that can withstand both success and struggle because it is built upon unwavering trust. The process of perseverance also teaches patience, which is one of the greatest expressions of faith. To wait without complaining, to endure without bitterness, and to believe without demanding proof. These are the marks of a heart that truly knows God. Perseverance allows time to do its holy work. While faith reaches upward, perseverance digs downward, deepening the soul's foundation. Together they balance each other. Faith gives courage to move, and perseverance gives strength to stay. The believer who lives with both will never be shaken because they have learned that God's timing is always perfect. Faith works best when partnered with perseverance because this combination aligns human effort with divine process. Faith says, a God will do the hand that trusts God and works quietly will one day shine openly. There is a principle in life and in faith that often escapes human understanding. What is done in humility, devotion, and secrecy often carries more weight than what is displayed before the eyes of men. Many people are eager for recognition, acclaim, and immediate rewards, but God's ways are not always immediate or obvious. He honors the quiet, faithful laborer, the one whose heart is committed to obedience rather than applause. The work that is done faithfully in the shadows without fanfare or recognition is never wasted. Every act of diligence, every sacrifice, every moment of patience and integrity is being recorded in heaven, where it cannot be overlooked. Trusting God in silence requires a deep understanding that His timing is perfect. There is a temptation to seek validation from the world, to announce every effort and achievement, to demand acknowledgement for the work we pour our hearts into. Yet those who trust God do not live for human eyes. For human eyes, they labor with steadfast hearts, knowing that God sees all, remembers all, and rewards all according to His wisdom and timing. The quiet hand, committed to its purpose without seeking applause, cultivates a type of strength that is enduring. Unlike fleeting human praise, the recognition that comes from God is eternal. When a person works faithfully in secrecy, they are investing in a legacy that cannot be stolen, diminished, or ignored. The process of quiet labor often requires immense patience. Life does not always reveal the fruits of effort immediately, and the faithful hand must continue to work even when the results are invisible. This period of hidden work is often when character is forged and faith is strengthened. Every repetition of diligence, every small act of obedience, and every moment of persistence contributes to a foundation upon which God can build. The quiet worker learns to delight in the process rather than the applause. They learn that significance is not always measured by public acknowledgement, but by obedience, consistency, and alignment with God's will. Those who work quietly and trust God also cultivate humility. Humility is the soil in which the most lasting achievements grow. When the focus is shifted from self-promotion to divine purpose, the heart becomes free from the pressures of comparison, jealousy, and pride. The quiet laborer does not need to boast because their confidence rests in God's knowledge and affirmation, not in human validation. This humility protects the soul from the pitfalls of arrogance and prepares the individual for a day when their work will shine openly, not because they demanded it, but because God chose to reveal. There is a sacred beauty in being faithful without fanfare, for such faithfulness becomes an authentic testimony of trust in the unseen. History and scripture repeatedly affirm that God honors the quiet and faithful. Many of the great figures in biblical history labored in obscurity before their moment of public recognition. Joseph spent years in prison before rising to power in Egypt. David tended sheep and fled from danger long before he ascended the throne. Moses shepherded flocks in the desert before leading Israel out of Egypt. In each instance, the work done in quiet obedience was preparing the individual for a moment when their efforts would shine open. The principle is timeless. God's recognition often comes after a period of patient trust and faithful labor. Trusting God while working quietly also strengthens resilience. Life is filled with challenges, delays, and disappointments, and the quiet worker must endure these trials without losing heart. Sir, perseverance in silence builds character, fortifies faith, and develops a tenacity that public acclaim alone cannot produce. When a person learns to continue serving, giving, and striving without immediate acknowledgement, they develop a spiritual maturity that equips them for even greater responsibilities. The hand that works quietly is not distracted by the fleeting opinions of others. It remains focused, steadfast, and fully dependent on God's guidance. Eventually, the hand that trusts God and labors in silence will shine openly, but it will shine with the light of divine favor, not merely human approval. Recognition that comes from God is different. It carries purpose, authority, and lasting impact. It is the culmination of faithfulness, obedience, and humility. The quiet worker's life becomes a testimony, not because they sought to be noticed, but because they were steadfast in the things that truly matter. Others may see the success, the influence, or the fruit of labor, but God alone knows the depth of perseverance, prayer, and commitment that made it possible. Quiet trust and diligent work also create a ripple effect. The life of someone who labors faithfully in secrecy influences others in ways they may never know. Their consistency encourages those around them. Their integrity inspires, and their obedience sets a standard that endures. While the world may initially overlook such lives, the ultimate revelation of their faithfulness will be unmistakable. When the time comes, the light of their efforts will shine openly, not to glorify themselves, but to honor God and to demonstrate the power of steadfast trust. This principle teaches a profound spiritual truth. God's timing and perspective are far greater than human perception. While society often celebrates immediate results and public achievements, God values the patient, the humble, and the faithful. The hand that trusts Him and works quietly is not idle. It is actively participating in God's plan, sowing seeds that will bear fruit in their appointed season. The work done in secrecy is not wasted or unnoticed. It is being prepared for a glorious unveiling, when the labor of faithfulness will be revealed, and the light of diligent, obedient effort will shine for all to see. Reflecting the glory of the one who has been guiding every step, destiny unfolds not through noise, but through humble obedience and consistent work. In a world that often measures achievement by visibility, recognition, and immediate results, it is easy to assume that success comes to those who make the most noise or command the most attention. Society applauds the loud, the flashy, and the fast-moving. Yet the truth of life, especially in the realm of faith and spiritual purpose, is entirely different. Destiny is not shaped by public acclaim or the quantity of words spoken. It is forged through quiet dedication, steadfast obedience, and disciplined effort carried out consistently over time. It is in the unseen, humble moments that the foundation of a meaningful life is laid, and it is in those same moments that God molds character, cultivates strength, and prepares the heart for fulfillment. Humble obedience is the key that unlocks the path to destiny. It is easy to be drawn to recognition, to pursue accolades, or to measure life's worth by the attention one receives. But humble obedience shifts the focus from self to God. It is the willingness to do what is right, to follow God's guidance, and to serve faithfully without demanding acknowledgement. Obedience does not always bring immediate reward, and it may even be met with misunderstanding or opposition. Yet the humble heart understands that the value of obedience lies not in human approval, but in alignment with divine will. God honors the heart that obeys even when no one else notices. Every act of obedience, no matter how small or hidden, sets into motion a series of events that ultimately shape destiny in ways that cannot be manufactured or rushed. Consistent work, when paired with obedience, is the engine that carries destiny forward. Life is often unpredictable, and the path to fulfillment can be long and arduous. Many give up when they do not see immediate results or when their efforts seem unnoticed. Yet those who persevere in consistent work, even in obscurity, are the ones whom God eventually elevates. Consistency reflects a heart that is disciplined, focused, and committed to the process, not merely the outcome. It is through daily, repeated effort that skills are honed, character is strengthened, and opportunities are created. The person who works quietly and persistently may not appear extraordinary in the eyes of the world, but within their life, destiny is steadily unfolding according to God's perfect plan. Destiny also unfolds through patience and trust. Humble obedience and consistent work often require waiting, sometimes for years before the fruits of labor are revealed. Waiting is not wasted time. It is an essential element of spiritual growth and preparation. In those seasons of waiting, God cultivates patience, strengthens resilience, and teaches lessons that cannot be learned in moments of instant gratification. The individual who trusts God's timing does not grow impatient or despair when recognition is delayed. They understand that destiny is revealed in God's perfect season, not according to human schedules. The quiet, faithful laborer is like a seed planted in the soil, nourished, protected, and developing unseen roots before it bursts forth in the full bloom of God's plan. The principle that destiny comes through humble obedience and consistent work is illustrated throughout history and scripture. Great leaders, prophets, and ordinary people who fulfilled God's purposes often did so not through flamboyant displays, but through patient, faithful service. Abraham waited decades for the promise of a son. Joseph endured betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment before ascending to power. Moses shepherded flocks and spent years in preparation before leading a nation. In each case, the visible success was preceded by long periods of quiet labor, humble obedience, and steadfast faith. Destiny in God's design is rarely instantaneous. It is cultivated in the hidden, disciplined actions of everyday life. Humble obedience and consistent work also guard against pride and entitlement. Those who chase recognition or expect instant results may become discouraged or prideful when outcomes do not meet expectations. But the heart that labors quietly, obeys faithfully, and trusts God's timing remains grounded. Such a heart recognizes that every opportunity, every ability, and every success is a gift from God, not something earned through display or force. By focusing on obedience rather than applause, on effort rather than external validation, the believer positions themselves to receive blessings that are sustainable, transformative, and aligned with God's eternal purpose. Moreover, the combination of humble obedience and consistent work produces a life of influence that extends beyond immediate personal gain. The patterns of discipline, faithfulness, and integrity established in quiet labor create a ripple effect that touches others and sets a standard for generations. The fruits of consistent, obedient effort often impact people in ways the laborer may never. The seeds sown in quiet diligence blossom into opportunities, relationships, and outcomes that fulfill God's greater vision. Destiny is not just personal, it is communal and eternal, woven into the lives of others through the faithful obedience of one heart committed to God. When the labor is quiet, the work is consistent, and the obedience is humble, destiny unfolds according to God's perfect plan. The individual who embraces these principles experiences life differently. They are not distracted by fleeting recognition, not disheartened by delays, and not driven by superficial success. Their focus remains on faithfulness, trusting that God will reveal the results in His perfect timing. The quiet, obedient worker may seem ordinary to the world, but in the eyes of heaven they are extraordinary. Every effort, every sacrifice, and every act of faithfulness becomes part of a grand design, preparing the way for the fulfillment of a purpose far greater than immediate gratification or worldly acclaim. The unfolding of destiny is a process that requires diligence, patience, and trust. It is the natural result of a life committed to doing God's will faithfully, even in small and unseen ways. Those who embrace humble obedience and consistent work discover that their efforts, though hidden for a time, are never wasted. God honors such faithfulness, and over time, the quiet labor manifests in remarkable ways. The rhythm of consistent effort and humble service creates a life that is prepared to step into the fullness of its God-given destiny, demonstrating that true greatness emerges not through noise or showmanship, but through steadfast dedication, trust, and faithful perseverance.